Okay, so get this right.
Hmm.
More than half of all the Muslim countries in the world at some point in history were ruled by Turks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? Like, if
Yeah.
you think about it, how we kind of picture Turkish people today, maybe with blue eyes, blonde hair, kind of that European vibe.
Right.
But their story starts way further east, like way back on the Central Asian steppes.
Hmm.
So today we're gonna take a deep dive into their journey to Islam, and let me tell you, it's a fascinating ride.
It really is. To understand this journey, we have to kind of picture the vast steppes, right?
Hmm.
Like this sea of grass that just stretches across Eurasia. And way back in the 400 CE, you had these Turkic tribes living there, much like, the pre-Islamic Arabs, right?
Right.
Nomadic, battling, constantly on the move.
So kind of like the Wild West, but with more horses and less saloons.
Exactly. And that wide open space, it's really key to their story. You see, around the 500 CE, the Mongols, they started pushing west, and all those Turkic tribes were kind of caught in the crosshairs.
There you
But
go.
they had to move, and that emptiness of the steppe, it allowed them to spread like crazy
So
fast.
it wasn't just about escaping the Mongols. It was almost like the steppe itself was kind of like
Yeah.
helping their expansion.
Yeah, it facilitated it for sure.
Wow, that's interesting. But how did these nomadic warriors end up leading huge Islamic empires, though?
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty big leap.
Well, it all really started with a clash of titans, the Battle of Talis in 751 CE.
Okay.
So imagine this, right? You've got the Muslim Abbasid Caliphate expanding eastward, and you've got the mighty Chinese Tang dynasty pushing west.
Right.
And right smack in the middle, you have the Turkic tribes. They were forced to pick a side.
Oh, wow. Talk about a high pressure situation. So this battle is more than just a skirmish. It was like a turning point for the Turks.
Absolutely, yeah. It was their first major interaction with the Muslim world, and the Muslims won, which halted the Chinese advance and kind of opened the door for Islam to spread east. So this is really where the Turks, first encountered Islam on a large scale.
Okay, so we've got the stage set, but battles are won by people, right? So were there any individuals who really stand out in this whole story of the Turkic conversion to Islam?
Well, there's this one story that's it's almost too incredible to believe. There was this young man, his name was Satuk Buga Khan, nephew of a powerful Turkish ruler.
Right.
He was just 12 years old when he encountered Islam.
12 years old. Okay, that is definitely not what I was expecting. So how does a 12-year-old even end up converting to a whole new religion?
Mhm. So there was this seemingly small event, right? But it had monumental consequences. There was this Muslim merchant, and he built a mosque in the region with permission from the local Turkish ruler. And Satu Gugger Khan, he was just fascinated by what he saw there, the prayers, the rituals, the whole way of life. It resonated with him like deeply, and he chose to convert.
Wow. So this young boy sees a new faith and just like embraces it. But I'm guessing a 12-year-old didn't exactly have the power to make his whole tribe convert, right?
Right, no. He was smart though. He kept his conversion secret. He was biding his time. Remember, he was in line for the throne. He knew that revealing his conversion too early could cost him his chance to actually lead his people to Islam.
He was playing the long game. That is um, amazing foresight for someone so young.
Yeah, it really is. And it paid off. In 934 CE, he became the Sultan of the Karakhanids, this powerful Turkic empire in what's now Kyrgyzstan. And just as he'd planned, he converted his entire empire. The famous Muslim traveler Ibn Fadlan, he wrote about 200,000 tents converting under his rule. We're talking about potentially 500,000 people, maybe even more.
That is incredible. So we're talking about the ancestors of the Uzbeks, Uyghurs, Hazaras. His conversion had a massive ripple effect. But this is just one part of the story, right? I mean, not all Turkic tribes were ruled by Satuk Bugur Khan.
Right, exactly. There's another fascinating thread that involves the Samanids.
Okay.
They were a Persian Muslim dynasty that controlled a big chunk of Central Asia. They were rivals with the Karakhanids, but they also saw the potential of the Turkic tribes as allies.
That's interesting. So instead of trying to conquer these powerful nomadic warriors, they thought, hey, maybe we should try converting them. Seems like a pretty bold strategy.
Well, they understood that bringing the the Turks into the fold of Islam could completely shift the power dynamics of the region. And their approach was, it was multifaceted. They actively spread the message of Islam, but they also forged these strategic alliances.
Alliances like dot marriages. That's always a classic move in these historical power plays.
Exactly. There's actually there's a fascinating account of a marriage alliance between the Samani Sultan Ismail Samani and the daughter of a powerful Oghuz Turkic chieftain.
Wait, the Oghuz Turks? Those are the ancestors of the modern day Turkish people, right?
Exactly.
The Turkmen, the Azeris, the Anatolian Turks. So this is where it all like connects.
This is it, yeah. This alliance was it was pivotal. The influence of Islam, it spread through the Oghuz and paved the way for their descendants to eventually establish empires like, the Seljuks and the Ottomans.
We've gone from a 12-year-old convert to empires spanning continents.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these seemingly isolated events are all like connected.
Yeah.
But we're still missing a piece of the puzzle, right?
Mhm.
What about the other Turkic groups, the Kazakhs, the Kyrgyz, the Tatars?
Well, their story takes us north to the steppes that border the Black Sea. This is where the Kipchaks, the ancestors of the modern-day Kazakhs, they built this massive empire of their own.
So we're moving from Central Asia to what is now modern-day Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
That's a huge jump geographically.
It was a huge jump, but their empire was ultimately crushed by a familiar foe, the Mongols.
Not the Mongols again. They seem to pop up everywhere in this story.
Yeah, they were a force to be reckoned with, for sure. But their arrival in this part of the world, it had a very unexpected twist. We're talking about the Golden Horde here, the westernmost part of the Mongol Empire. And within a few generations, something really remarkable happened.
Let me guess. They converted to Islam. Seriously. Again?
You got it. In 1313, this young man named Özbeg Khan, he became the Sultan of the Golden Horde. And just like Satuk Bukur Khan, Özbeg had converted to Islam at a young age and waited patiently for his moment to spread the faith.
So history repeats itself.
Yeah.
But this time it's right in the heart of the Mongol Empire. What happened to the Kipchak Turks under Mongol rule? Did they just get absorbed?
It was a complex mix of cultural exchange and distinct identities. The Kipchak Turks, they became the Kazakhs, the Kyrgyz, and all these various Takhar groups that were scattered across Eastern Europe and Russia. And because the Mongols intermingled with them, some historians actually believe that the Uzbeks, named after Özbeg Khan himself, might actually be like a unique blend of Turkic and Mongol heritage.
It's amazing how the Golden Horde became this melting pot of cultures and religions. And all these conversions, all these empires, they eventually led to something truly massive, right?
They did. The conversions of the Turkic people gave rise to some of the most powerful and influential empires in Islamic history. The Ottomans, the Seljuks, the Mamluks of Egypt, the Mughals in India, they all traced their roots back to those early conversions on the steppes.
We've gone from small nomadic tribes to empires stretching from Mongolia to the Balkans. That's a pretty incredible impact. What stands out to you as the most significant consequence of this widespread conversion to Islam?
Well, the Turks didn't just conquer, they shaped the Islamic world,
Right.
They were patrons of art, architecture, and scholarship. Their contributions to Islamic military strategy, they're just immeasurable.
Right. It wasn't just about expanding territory. It was about enriching and influencing a whole civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Did they leave any lasting legacy outside those massive empires, though? Were there smaller groups who made their own mark on history?
Oh, there are countless examples. Think about the Lipka Tatars, for example.
Yeah.
They were this group of Muslim Turks who settled in Poland centuries ago. They held on to their faith and culture. They even built the first mosque in New York City in the early 20th century.
Wait, really? The first mosque in New York City was built by Polish Turks. I had no idea. Any other stories that kind of capture this unexpected impact?
Well, there's Kuchum Khan. He was a Siberian Tatar leader who fought against the expanding Russian Empire in the 16th century. He and his followers, they not only resisted the Russians, they also actively spread Islam among the indigenous Siberian people. Talk about defending your faith and identity on multiple fronts.
That's incredible. It really challenges the way we usually think about history, doesn't it? It's not just about dates and battles. It's about individuals and communities shaping the world in these really unexpected ways.
Exactly. And that's just a glimpse into the impact of the Turkic conversion to Islam.
It's been an incredible journey so far, going from those those wide-open steps to the heart of powerful empires. But we've only just scratched the surface, haven't we?
We have. We've covered the broad strokes of their conversion and the rise of empires, but to really understand the impact, we need to dive deeper into the cultural transformations that took place.
I'm ready. How did Islam actually change the everyday lives of the Turkic people?
That's where it gets really fascinating. Islam wasn't just a change of religion for them. It was a complete cultural shift. Think about their nomadic lifestyle,
Okay.
their deep connection to the land, their warrior ethos.
Right. Those were the values that allowed them to thrive on the steppes, to conquer vast territories.
Yeah.
But how did those values mesh with the teachings of Islam?
That's what we'll explore next.
Okay, so we left off talking about this clash of cultures, right? Like nomadic warriors embracing a religion that's known for its laws, scholarship, and emphasis on community.
Yeah.
So what happened when those two worlds collided?
Well, it was a gradual but really profound transformation. Imagine those core nomadic values,
Yeah.
that feel sense of independence, loyalty to the tribe above all else, and that warrior culture that prized courage and strength. Those were the very things that allowed them to survive and even thrive in the harsh environment of the steppes.
Right, yeah. Makes sense. But Islam emphasizes very, very different values, right? Like submission to God, a sense of belonging to a larger community of believers, and even pacifism in certain contexts.
Exactly. And this is where the story gets really interesting. It wasn't a simple matter of the Turks just, abandoning their old ways and adopting a whole new set of beliefs. It was more about finding a way to integrate those beliefs into their existing cultural framework.
So it was less about erasing their past and more about kind of reinterpreting it through the lens of Islam.
Precisely. For example, the concept of a unified ummah or community of believers, it challenged the traditional Turkic emphasis on tribal identity. Suddenly, loyalty wasn't just about your clan, it was about belonging to a much, much larger global community.
Wow, that's a huge shift in perspective. But I can also see how it would be appealing to people who are constantly expanding, encountering new cultures, building empires. Islam kind of provided a way to unite all those diverse groups under a single banner.
Exactly. And Islamic law, with its emphasis on justice and ethical conduct, it also brought a new dimension to their legal and social systems. Remember, these were nomadic people who lived by their own codes and customs. Islam provided a more formalized and structured legal framework, which was essential for governing large multi-ethnic empires.
So it wasn't just about adopting new rituals and beliefs. It was about fundamentally reshaping the way they govern themselves and interacted with each other.
Absolutely. And we see this playing out in so many fascinating ways, from architecture to language to art.
Oh, tell me about the architecture. I've always been fascinated by Islamic architecture. Did the Turks bring their own unique style to it?
They did. Think about the nomadic past. They lived in yurts, those portable round tents made of felt and wood.
Right.
But with the adoption of Islam, they began to construct these magnificent mosques, madrasas, which were Islamic schools, and caravanserais, which were roadside inns for travelers.
And these buildings, they incorporated classic Islamic architectural elements, right? Domes, minarets, those intricate geometric patterns.
Exactly. But they didn't simply copy those elements. They blended them with their own artistic traditions, creating this really unique hybrid style. You can see this in the Seljuk architecture, for example, where you find a beautiful fusion of Persian and Turkic influences.
So even as they embraced a new faith and a new architectural language,
Yeah.
they found ways to express their own cultural identity.
Precisely. And we see the same pattern in the way they adopted the Arabic script.
Right, because Arabic was the language of the Quran, so naturally it became the language of Islamic scholarship and religious texts.
Exactly. But the Turkic languages had their own unique sounds and grammatical structures, so they adapted the Arabic script. They added new letters, modified existing ones to better represent their languages.
That's fascinating. So even as they adopted new script, they were essentially shaping it to fit their own linguistic needs. It's a great example of how cultural exchange is never a one-way street.
It really isn't. And perhaps the most striking example of this two-way exchange is in the military sphere.
Oh, right. We talked about that warrior ethos earlier. I bet those skills came in handy as they built these vast empires.
Absolutely. The Turks, they were renowned for their cavalry, their archery skills, and their disciplined fighting formations. These military innovations played a major role in the successes of Islamic empires, like, like the Seljuks and the Ottomans.
So their nomadic background, their warrior culture, actually became an asset to the Islamic world.
It did. They helped to shape Islamic military strategy and tactics, and their prowess on the battlefield, contributed to the spread of Islam across vast territories.
This is really making me rethink the whole idea of conversion. It wasn't just about passive adoption. It was about actively shaping and contributing to a new faith, a new civilization.
Exactly. And that contribution extended beyond the battlefield. Turkic scholars made significant advancements in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. They played a crucial role in translating and transmitting knowledge during the Golden Age of Islam.
Ah, the Golden Age of Islam. Can you give us a little background on that for those who might not be familiar?
Of course, the Golden Age of Islam, roughly from the 8th to the 13th centuries, was this period of extraordinary intellectual and cultural flourishing in the Islamic world. It was a time of great scientific discovery, philosophical inquiry, and artistic innovation. Think of it like a Renaissance, but centered in the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Europe and Asia.
And the Turkic people were right in the thick of it, contributing to this explosion of knowledge.
Right. They were. They translated Greek philosophical works into Arabic. They studied Persian literature, and they made original contributions to Islamic jurisprudence, theology, and even medicine.
Wow, their impact really was multifaceted. It wasn't just about military power. It was about intellectual and cultural contributions that left a lasting mark on the Islamic world.
Exactly. And speaking of diversity of impact, it's important to remember that the Turkic world itself was incredibly diverse. We've been talking about them as this single group, but they were made up of many different tribes, each with their own history, culture, and experiences.
That's a great point. It's easy to fall into the trap of oversimplifying history, treating huge groups of people as monoliths. So, how did this internal diversity play out in their relationship with Islam? Did different groups experience conversion in different ways?
Absolutely. There wasn't a single uniform experience of conversion. Some groups embraced Islam quite readily, while others resisted it for centuries.
Makes sense. Their historical context, their interactions with other groups, their internal dynamics, all of that would shape their responses to Islam.
Exactly. For example, remember the Oghuz Turks who we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
They converted relatively quickly and peacefully under the influence of the Samanids.
Right. That strategic alliance, the royal marriage, that played a big role in paving the way for their conversion.
It did, but other Turkic groups like the Kipchaks, they had a more tumultuous experience. The Mongol invasions, for example, brought violence and upheaval, which probably didn't make them very receptive to the religion of their conquerors at first.
That's a very human response. It's hard to embrace a new faith when it's associated with violence and oppression.
Absolutely. But even within the Kipchak world, there were variations. Some groups, like the ancestors of the Kazakhs, they adopted Islam gradually and peacefully, largely through the influence of Sufi missionaries and traders.
Sufism. That's fascinating. Can you tell us a little more about Sufism and why it might have been so appealing to the Turkic people?
Sure. Sufism is often described as a mystical dimension of Islam. It emphasizes a direct personal experience of God through spiritual practices like meditation, music, and poetry.
I can see how that would be attractive to nomadic people who are already deeply connected to nature and who might have been drawn to the more spiritual aspects of Islam.
Exactly. Sufism provided a more experiential and less legalistic path to Islam, which resonated with many Turkic groups. Sufi mystics and preachers, they traveled widely, spreading their teachings and establishing communities across Central Asia and beyond.
So it wasn't always about grand pronouncements from sultans or conquering armies. Sometimes it was about these quiet personal connections forged through shared spiritual experiences. It's almost like the Sufi approach to Islam mirrored that nomadic way of life,
Sure.
constantly moving, connecting, adapting.
That's a great observation. And these diverse paths to Islam, they created this rich tapestry of religious expression within the Turkic world. You had everything from the formal legalism of the urban centers to the mystical practices of the Sufi orders.
It's amazing to think about how one faith could manifest itself in so many different ways, reflecting the cultural and historical diversity of the people who embraced it.
It is, and this diversity continues to shape the Islamic landscape of the Turkic world today, from the grand mosques of Istanbul to the Sufi shrines of Central Asia, from the vibrant Islamic communities of the Balkans to the resilient Muslim minorities of Siberia. The legacy of the Turkic conversion to Islam is a testament to the enduring power of faith to adapt, evolve, and inspire.
It's amazing how much ground we've covered, from the initial encounters on the battlefield to these subtle cultural transformations. And through it all, we see the Turkic people not as passive recipients of a new faith, but as active agents shaping and contributing to the Islamic world.
Exactly. They brought their own unique perspectives, their own talents, their own energy to this dynamic faith, and in doing so, they enriched both themselves and the broader Islamic civilization.
It really makes you realize that history isn't just about, dry facts and dates. It's about these incredible stories of cultural exchange, adaptation, and innovation. But I have a feeling there are still more layers to uncover, more stories to tell. What other fascinating threads are woven into this tapestry?
You're absolutely right. There are countless fascinating stories waiting to be discovered, from the role of women in spreading and preserving Islam to the intricate networks of trade and scholarship that connected the Turkic world to the broader Islamic civilization.
I am so ready to hear more. Let's dive into those stories next. We've been on quite a journey tracing the Turkic conversion to Islam. We've seen how they went from, nomadic warriors to builders of empires, shaping the Islamic world in ways we're only beginning to understand.
Yeah, and we've talked about how their conversion wasn't just a single event. It was this complex process that unfolded over centuries, influenced by everything from uh, battlefield alliances to Sufi mysticism.
Right. It was a story of adaptation, exchange, and just incredible resilience. But there are still some fascinating threads we haven't fully explored. You mentioned the role of women, for example. It's easy to focus on the sultans and the generals, but women must have played a crucial role in this story too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Women were often the unsung heroes, the driving forces behind the scenes, nurturing the faith within families and communities. They were educators, spiritual guides, and in some cases even scholars and patrons of the arts.
Okay, so now I need some names and stories.
Mhm.
Do we have any examples of women who really left their mark on this era?
Oh, there are many. Take Turkan Khatun, for example.
Sure.
She was the wife of the Seljuk Sultan Malik Shah R, and she was known for her piety, her intelligence, and her influence in the Seljuk court. She was a patron of scholars and artists, and she actively promoted Islamic education.
She sounds like a real powerhouse.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think of her, shaping the intellectual and cultural landscape of the Seljuk Empire.
Hmm. And she wasn't alone. Countless Turkic women, both elite and ordinary, they played these vital roles in their communities. They taught children about Islam, passed on traditions, and often served as spiritual guides and mentors.
So they were the ones kind of laying the groundwork for these newly formed Islamic societies,
Yeah.
ensuring that the faith took root and flourished at the grassroots level. It really highlights the importance of women in transmitting and preserving culture, especially during times of great change.
Exactly, and their influence wasn't limited to the domestic sphere. Some Turkic women even became renowned scholars and poets in their own right.
Really, do you have any examples? I'd love to hear about a female scholar or poet from that era.
Well, there's Miri Hatun.
Okay.
She was an Ottoman poet who lived in the 15th century. She was known for her beautiful verses, which explored themes of love, spirituality, and the complexities of the human experience. Her work was celebrated in her time, and it's still studied today.
That's incredible. It's so inspiring to think of her voice kind of echoing through the centuries, challenging our assumptions about the role of women in that era. It just goes to show you that talent and intellect transcend cultural boundaries.
Yeah, it really does. And speaking of transcending boundaries, let's shift our focus to another powerful force in this story.
Yeah.
Trade. The Turkic people were renowned merchants. Their networks crisscrossed vast swaths of Eurasia.
Right. Remember that traveling merchant who built the mosque that sparked young Satuk Bugar Khan's conversion? It's a great reminder that trade was a vital pathway for the spread of Islam.
Absolutely. Those trade routes weren't just about silk and spices.
Yeah.
You know, they were conduits for ideas, beliefs, and cultural exchange. Merchants, they didn't just carry merchandise, they carried stories, news, and often the message of Islam itself.
It's like the ancient version of the internet,
Yeah.
spreading information, connecting people across vast distances. So as the Turkey people migrated and established themselves in new lands, those trade networks kind of helped to spread Islam organically, person to person, along with all those goods and services.
Exactly. And these networks, they also fostered intellectual exchange. Take the Silk Road, for example. It wasn't just about silk, right? It was a conduit for the flow of scientific ideas, philosophical texts, and religious teachings between East and West.
So the Turkic world was this incredible crossroads,
Yeah.
this melting pot of cultures and ideas where Islam was just one element in a much larger process of exchange and interaction.
That's a great way to put it. And this intellectual ferment, it helped create a flourishing of scholarship in the Turkic world. They translated Greek philosophical texts, they studied Persian literature, and they made significant contributions to Islamic jurisprudence, theology, and science.
So they weren't just passive recipients of knowledge. They were actively engaging with it, shaping it, adding their own unique perspectives to this vast body of Islamic thought.
Exactly, and that spirit of intellectual curiosity and exchange, it's a defining characteristic of Turkic culture to this day.
Wow, this deep dive has been an incredible journey. We've covered so much ground, from those early encounters on the steps to the rise of powerful empires, from the role of women to the flourishing of trade and scholarship.
It's amazing to see how this one historical event, the Turkic conversion to Islam, has had such far-reaching and enduring consequences.
It really has. And I think that the most important takeaway is that this wasn't just about, conquest and conversion. It was about cultural exchange, adaptation, and ultimately the fusion of different traditions to create something new and vibrant.
I completely agree that the Turks brought their own energy and dynamism to the Islamic world, and in doing so, they enriched both themselves and the broader Islamic civilization.
It's a reminder that history is a dynamic process full of unexpected twists and turns, and it's a story that's still unfolding.
Right.
The Turkic people, with their rich and diverse heritage, they continue to shape our world today.
They do, and I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive. We've only scratched the surface of this fascinating story, but hopefully we've given our listeners a taste of the incredible impact the Turkic conversion to Islam has had on our world.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of history and culture.
Yeah.